It's good to see everybody. Of course, challenging last week for us. Saw us improvement in a number of areas with our team, especially on the defensive end, and put ourselves in position in two ball games against teams ahead of us in the standings, towards the top of the standings, and just fell a little bit short. I'm proud of our guys for their preparation, the willpower, the number of things, and of course it's disappointing not to have that reinforcement with a win after playing better, but we're going to keep pushing and fighting and just keep trying to get a little bit better. Again, pleased with some of the things we're doing defensively. We got to find a way to find the bottom of the net more on the offensive end.
I guess questions? Last month of the season, any message? Have you sent any message to your team to end this stretch?
Yeah, our messages are daily. I mean, every opportunity we get, we're with each other almost every single day. But the big message is we control the things that we can control. Our attitude, our effort, our body language, and we'll give them examples of teams that have continued to knock on the door and then have pushed through. And we expect to be one of those teams. Our guys are fighting like crazy, and we've dealt with a number of different things, many things outside of our control, but we're getting better. We've got a tough stretch of games here, but we're just going to keep pushing. That's what we can control.
In this current era of college basketball, what do you feel like is and what is your philosophy and the best philosophy in terms of talent acquisition and retention?
Okay. There's so many things. I mean, we talk about it all the time. We're about to have our player opponent recruiting meeting, those three things. And from your own, you always want to be able to develop your roster. The number one goal is the guys that are in your locker room, you're helping them get better and better. And we pour everything we've got into these guys. And that's whether someone is just here for one season, like a Dewan Odom who's just signed up to be here for one season, or we have some true freshmen in our program, and from even to a KJ Martin who just joined us mid-year and is redshirting. He's on a different plan. So we're pouring everything we have into those guys, and then from a roster retention standpoint, it's a two-way street. I mean, there's guys, of course, that you want to stay here. Hope that guys want to stay here, and you got to do a number of different things now in today's climate to provide a package and provide a scenario that it's worth both parties. Now, from an identification standpoint, there's a number of different things. We have high school scouting, we have junior college scouting, and then we have an awareness of who all is out there that could be eligible to play again next year with an additional year of eligibility, or guys that could potentially hit the portal or not. And if they do, we've already evaluated them, just like how the NBA does NBA personnel, college personnel, and so forth.
Justin Moore on Thursday was talking about the resources that have been devoted for football in, I guess, the last couple of months. And then, that his goal is that for all the sports to compete at a top of AAC level, and that they are supported at a top of AAC level. So from your perspective as the men's basketball coach, what are the resources that are necessary for you to have to compete at a top of AAC level?
Yeah, there's a number of different areas in that, and I think in some of those areas we've really improved in the 2.5, almost 3 years since I've been here. The support of President Carson, things have increased, and I think with Justin, he comes with a background of having done it in the SEC. He's seen it at a very high level, and has a really good understanding of the things that we can do to improve. And relying very much on him and all the conversations that we've had. Of course, I have feelings about it as well. Being in the trenches for men's basketball and what that means and how that's continuing to adjust over time. but we're going to keep pushing. I absolutely believe we can do it here at a high level. Again, we've got to continue improving in our infrastructure and some different things, but I've got great belief in Justin Moore and his team to help with that.
So, from a resource perspective, is it mostly staffing? Is it mostly NIL? Is it mostly other types of things? What do you feel like is the next step?
I think the next step for everybody is adjusting to this revenue sharing that happens, assuming that the House case gets settled in April. I know there's a lot of detractors right now. There was the date that just happened where people could say, hey, I don't like it like this and we need to adjust it and so forth. But assuming that happens, that's really the next step for us. And I know there's been so many meetings and mechanics put in place and how that we would handle that. And in addition to what we've been doing through a collective and so forth, but that's really the next level for everybody. I mean, it's figuring out how it works for your university on top of you still have academic components and transfer credit and how you handle all those types of things. So there's a mixture because it's all about the players. It's developing players. It's recruit, develop, retain. Like that's the thing that I talk about all the time with our staff. Recruit the right ones, develop them, retain them, and let that cycle go.
Do you ever feel like you will reach a point where you get to do the same thing more than 1 year in a row, or do you feel like this is going to be the current state of college athletics is going to be where things are going to change a little bit every single year and you're going to face a different type of challenge every single year? Or do you anticipate getting to a point where things stabilize a little bit and they're more consistent over several years?
I think so. I don't know when that'll be, Michael. Like I think back on my career, and there's always been some type of changes. I mean, I can remember when we were calling juniors once a month and seniors once a week, and we were calling the home phone. I know I'm dating myself now, but then we went to the text messaging was a big rule. There was a time where we could only sign 5 players in one class and 8 over 2. Then that went away. So we can always expect some type of change, but in the last 3 years, we've had monumental change. It would be, someone told me one time, it'd be like if all of a sudden in the next year we started driving on the other side of the road with steering wheels on the other side of the road, and the green light now meant red, like just a number of different things like that. I think at some point, and I don't know what all needs to happen, I know people want Congress involved in a number of different things to find an exemption with antitrust laws. We're in for some change still, and I think it could be for a little while. Hopefully in the next few years, though, after that, we've got some stability.
The discussions of resources and needs and the evaluation of your program, how often do you have that with the athletic administration here?
Their evaluation of our program?
Well, I mean, just how often are the conversations that you have with the administration? Is it a daily thing? Is it a weekly thing? Is it just every once in a while, just about the state of the program, the state of what you feel like you need to build the program, et cetera?
It's quite often. I wouldn't say every day. There's different things that have a timing to it, but they've been great. Luke Hillen's our sport administrator. I've talked to Joe Fields early on in his tenure here, and of course Justin. But we talk about the constant changes and how to try to get out in front, to use the size of our school as a real weapon, because being a smaller private school, being nimble in some of the changes that occur, without question, like we want to be an early adopter in a number of different things rather than wait to see how everything plays out. Be more proactive than reactive. But I have great faith in our athletic administration, our university administration, our board of trustees, to try to get everybody on the same page to push this thing forward. because that's all I focus on. I mean, we learn from the past. Can't do anything about that. We got to keep pushing forward, and so that we can be, because nobody's expectations are higher than mine.
Paul?
Is your message after the game, and maybe the teaching points for, let's just say, like the last 5 minutes, from the 10-0 drought that you guys went on, that seemed to be frustrating, and then how that final stanza played out?
Yeah, so we'll get together with our team tomorrow and we talk about runs. It is a game of runs, and you try to limit 10-0 runs coming your way. Of course, we'd love to have as many as we can going the other way, and we've had some of those. But just looking at the why, because I think some players, of course, I broke the tape down on the plane ride home last night. It's so important to give the guys the why, like, hey, this is what happened during this stretch when we're up 7 and then in 2 minutes that was erased. And it was 2 turnovers, a tough shot, an and one, and a wide open 3 for them. And we've got to be able to then show some resolve and find a way to punch through at the end. We've had a number of games, as we all know, that it's a couple possessions with 5 minutes to go. We've worked really hard to put ourselves in that position. We got to find a way to get that one more stop, that one more bucket. And it's hard. It's hard. It's frustrating. And every game is a little bit different, from switching man-to-man and pressure from one team to matchup zone and a mixture of defense from another team. And we just got to be able to keep finding ways to get better and use those as examples and push through to get it on the other side. Because once you start doing that, it can kind of it can avalanche and snowball in another direction where hey, this is what we do. We have figured this out now.
What makes Memphis so good to you when you watch?
I mean, they have immense talent, not just physical talent. They have the talent of experience too. You look at how long some of those guys have been in college and how long that they've played at a high level. Their pieces fit. They can play big, they can play small, but they have some interesting stats. I mean, defensively, they're number 1 in the league, and they've got what I call the double whammy. They're first in effective field goal percentage defense, but then they're also first in turning people over. So not only are you getting less shots, when you do, they make you miss a lot. And with their speed and tenacity, they really capitalize in transition off of those. They're so fast. And there's some teams that you look at, hey, we've got to be able to guard these plays. We've got to be able to guard their players, and we've got to be able to guard a broken floor and be able to set our defense. And from an offensive perspective, you've got to play a little bit of keep away and just make sure that you can connect. Possession's the most important. And then when you do get the opportunity to knock one down, you got to be ready to do it, because they'll keep you on your heels.
Bruce?
Coach, last game was the first game you had everybody on your roster available. First time they've all been there ready to go. And yet you got guys that are banged up, you got guys that are sick, you got guys that are injured. So is the next step not only having them all, but then kind of getting them to some semblance of health?
Well, I told the team, and it is a great feeling to have options and a number of guys available, but they weren't all available all week for practice. Like we're still trying to get to a point where we can practice in its entirety. And I know we're not alone in that, but with this particular group, my message was, hey, we got a short prep getting ready for Memphis, but we got to have a great practice on Tuesday. Like we've got to be physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually just locked in and be able to give everything we possibly have here in the first week of February so that we can play with versatility too. And that's the plan. So I'm encouraged by just the guys and their resolve. Of course, disappointed for them. They're putting everything they possibly have into it, them, our staff, and just trying to find a way to that finish line and just, winning by a nose.
Anything else, Seth? All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.